Ruben Swartz with Sales for Nerds, kicking off episode 1 with Jason Cohen. And we had such a good time. There was so much good stuff. We split it into 2 episodes, and we probably would have needed more if we hadn't run out of wine. Ruben Swartz here from Sales for Nerds, kicking off the Sales for Nerds podcast. If you feel more comfortable with SQL than sales calls, more at home writing test suites than proposals, more interested in crunching numbers than shaking hands, if you think networking should be about routers rather than cocktails with strangers, if you're more interested in debating code editors than negotiating deals, but somehow you ended up responsible for some of those sales and marketing activities, this podcast is for you. I spent a long time learning lessons the hard way, and I want to help you learn them the easy way by sharing my experiences and by talking with other brilliant tech people who figured out how to hack not just the code, but the sales and marketing process as well. The main thing I struggled with and I want to help other people avoid is the notion that technical people can't be good at sales and marketing. That unless you're the extroverted football captain who's been in sales for years, you're just not going to be good at it. Being a quote-unquote technical person is about solving problems, technical problems. When you start your own business or have to sell, you're still solving problems. You just have to solve the business problem. I think the mindset of problem solving is more important than the technical/business part. As Yoda would say, no different, only different in your mind. This podcast, though, is a little different in that while we discuss some serious issues, we're here to share some wine and also talk about the wine. I hope this means that the interviews will be more fun, but really it's just because it seemed like a good excuse to have a glass of wine while I'm working. So today I'm really excited to have Jason Cohen, founder and CTO of WPEngine, on the podcast. Jason has founded and grown 4 companies, all to more than $1 million in revenue. He's also got some hardcore tech chops, C and C++ programming, Java, and more. He's, as I mentioned, the founder and CTO of WPEngine. I'm sitting here in their beautiful offices overlooking downtown Austin. WPEngine is the largest managed WordPress platform, serving over 50,000 customers with 400 employees in Austin, San Francisco, San Antonio, London. Am I missing anything?
We're very soon going to open in Limerick.
All right, and coming soon in Ireland. I figured there might be more coming. And I am one of those 50,000 customers, and some of my customers are also counted in that number. I do host Mimran.com there after I realized it was really stupid to be running my own server and had a recent inadvertent denial of service attack, which made me really happy that I was doing that. I don't think anything would have happened, but it's just nice knowing that I don't have to worry about that. It's just not worth it. Jason's also known for his Smart Bear blog, and you can find that at asmartbear.com, bear as in the animal, which has some awesome advice that you should definitely be reading. He still writes there, but the name is from a company he founded and sold that helped companies do code reviews. And he's also been helping...
More to the point, I was the engineer, the only founder, and I had to learn sales because that was enterprise sales. So we sold millions of dollars worth of stuff over 6 years with 0 salespeople. Just me and other engineers making those kinds of sales that people say that you have to have, sales guys in Buicks playing golf to do. So maybe we can talk about that.
Awesome. Yes, and in addition, Jason is one of the founding mentors here at Capital Factory, Austin's top incubator, helping other entrepreneurs. And of course, he's taken some time out to help us tonight. And when I invited him on this podcast, I sent an email listing out all these reasons why it would be fun, and I tried to flatter him. And he wrote back saying, "You had me at wine."
Yeah, that's the best idea about this wine. We'll get the meeting. That's sales too.
That's sales, and it's accidental. I think that's part of it. It's if you're trying to do sales and it feels bad, you're probably doing the used car sales stuff. If I'm literally saying, "Hey, I would love to sit down with Jason and share a glass of wine," then it feels much more natural. So tonight we've got this Federico Paternina Rioja Gran Reserva from 2006. Jason, I'm guessing you know a lot more about Spanish wine than I do.
I really don't.
Okay.
And I don't want to learn a lot about wine because then I'll be picky. And instead, I like a lot of it, and that's it. And I can enjoy it. There's a lot of other things like in engineering where I want to know down to the gnat's ass and I want to know what every byte is and all that. But maybe some things you can just enjoy. So I can't enjoy Python, but I can enjoy some Spanish red wine and not know how it works under the hood, and that's good.
I think that's a great point, and I sort of have a reputation amongst my friends who know nothing about wine. They think I'm an expert, and then my friends who know a lot about wine know that I'm not an expert at all. And kind of like you, I don't want to get too knowledgeable because it might take away some of the enjoyment, and it's also conceivably can make it a lot more expensive.
It could. Although even the great wine stewards will tell you it's not necessarily always by the price of the bottle. But I think even then there's a lot of BS in that. I remember I was at a tasting maybe a year ago, and so there was a guy who had a winery in Piedmont in Italy where they make a lot of great wine. He was there and introducing his wines, which is awesome. I mean, even if you don't know anything about wine like me, still having the inventor of the wine talking about it is great. That's just fun. So then there was also the sommelier of the restaurant.
Okay.
So the sommelier, I remember, he gets up in this first one. He goes, "This first wine runs the gamut of human emotion." What in the hell does that mean? Then he starts talking about how it starts with this and then that, and it's just all this stuff. And he just goes on for maybe 4 minutes, which is forever when you just want to have the glass of wine already. So he finally stops, and the guy who made the wine, he stands up and he goes, "This wine, we make it to be cheap. Enjoy." It's like, see, that's all it was. And that's all you gotta know. It's cheap and it goes with everything. Oh, I get that. Which it was. Anyway.
Well, that kind of goes back to your example of you selling millions of dollars of stuff as a technical person, and we'll get into that in a second, but presumably because you could talk to the other technical people versus the Buick driving sales guy speaking a completely different language. This sommelier wasn't talking your language. Maybe that would have been a great presentation to a different audience, but for you, you just wanted to enjoy the wine.
See, I take a different thing from it. I take people can smell bullshit and they're not interested.
Okay.
And so being honest and direct works. And one good thing about engineers is we're good at that. We're good about arguing about stuff. I don't think that algorithm will work. That kind of stuff. We're good at that. And even when we have differences of opinions like Emacs versus Vim or something, we can actually just disagree and then continue.
Right.
I think in sales, you look at what does an engineer have that's endearing, that's good. One of them is that, just trying to be honest about stuff and just saying it like it is. That really got people when we were in sales meetings because they're not used to it. They're used to the usual, let me show you 14 slides and tell you about this and that. I would make fun of that when I was in a sales call. I'd say, all right, before we get to the demo, I have a deck. I've got 27 slides with our corporate mission and our history, and you can see everyone going like, oh my God, I'm just kidding. Let's get right to I don't have any slides. Let's go to the demo. You can ask me questions if you want to know stuff about the company. And everyone laughed, and it was helpful. And the reason they laughed is because that is what it usually is, especially in enterprise sales, right? You get the lecture. So just even being honest about how much the sales process is inhuman and boring, and not really what the people want to see. Even being honest about that works.
That's a great point,
right? And so just calling it the way you see it, including the bullshit that's there, is good. I think, and it establishes a rapport of that you're a person and you're going to talk about stuff for better or worse and so on. Also, later on when you claim something that it does, like you're more believable just because it's clear that you're a straight talker.
If you've admitted there's something it doesn't do, when you say it does something,
yeah,
it makes sense.
Exactly. Another thing we have as engineers naturally is we get really excited about this stuff, like. The flame wars online about Emacs and Vim are like ridiculously emotional.
And
like
for
we get into it.
For anyone listening who is not familiar with this, you're lucky. And it's just two different programs that you use to edit files, especially code. And some people who use one or the other of them are known to get, shall we say, religious about them.
But we have a million. C versus everything else, Java versus .NET. I mean, anything. Like, we have a ton of these kind of things, right? And we're really passionate about it. Whether languages should be type safe or not. Whatever, right? That passion, that works. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things you don't get with crappy salespeople, and the same kind of thing you're saying, the sort of jock or the used car salesman. They don't actually care, and you know it. Mm-hmm. You could say that's another form of being genuine, but it's a specific type of thing. The fact is they don't care. They don't care about you. They're not passionate about selling you this Prius today. No, they're not really. The passion's really vacant, even if they try to fake it. We can all tell. It may not be conscious. It may be. It depends on how introspective you are or how aware you are of the current situation, but it's true. And you look at leaders who people want to follow, and I don't care what your political leanings are, it's clear that people like Trump and Bernie get the emotional sale. Mm-hmm. They're not. Are they salespeople any more than Clinton? I don't know, but they get the emotional sale. That's true, regardless of the politics. They do that. Why? Because they're honest, they're direct, and they're passionate genuinely about the thing. And people aren't sure what Hillary Clinton's passionate about, even though we all know she's the greatest policy wonk out there, right? So, again, I'm not trying to say right, wrong. I'm just as a salesperson, passion and genuineness wins, and you can see it right now in the election that's going on now in America. But taking it, maybe closer to home, we were getting a soccer ball the other day. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and so we go to academy, and there's this guy there, and we're like, we need a soccer ball. She doesn't even play soccer. She's on a team. She just joined some team, quote unquote, that meets in the lot next door, right? Like this is not serious. So we're like, we just need a soccer ball. So the guy, he just starts going, okay, well, this is the best one, but you don't need that because you're just getting started. You don't even know the difference. Here's what you need. And here's why he goes, a pattern and this and that. All this crap we couldn't care less about, but he cared. You could just tell because he was just exuberant and it just came out. He couldn't help it.
And it's like a $10 soccer ball.
Yeah.
That he's not getting a commission on.
Not at all. And also he wasn't trying to sell us the best one.
Right.
The best one for us, though, because he listened and he was passionate about all these pieces and parts. And you can bet that if she got more serious, that's the guy I want because he knows what he's doing. And at the same time, didn't try to sell me like the equivalent of the steak and lobster, when I didn't need it. So that passion that way, I don't mean just that just sort of this abstract thing like, oh, entrepreneurs need passion. Like, yeah. Not just that, but I mean this genuine, like, you can't help it. You sort of get in the zone. You can't stop talking, as I'm doing at this very moment, actually. That kind of thing is contagious, and it works, and it's sales. And engineers tend to have it about things that they care about.
Right.
And so channeling that thing that you already have about some things as an engineer, and the fact that you're willing to talk straight and call a spade, those are two qualities that may not be a used car salesman, but they're very effective sales qualities, and you can do it. And you should not, as an engineer, try to be like a used car salesman because you're not like that. So you won't do it well. You could argue neither do they. Right. But even if they do, even if there's a way to do that that's awesome, great, but you're not going to do that because that's not you. So you've got to harness the things that are like you, and those two things, now, everyone's different. I'm not saying everyone's like this, but engineers tend to have these kinds of qualities. That kind of thing... using those things that you really are, that works.
Playing to your strengths instead of trying to make up for your weaknesses.
And just being honest about it.
And I wasted years not doing that. Right? I got into sales accidentally, and I was around all these enterprise salespeople who did all the bullshit. And I look back later and I realized some of them were actually really good. And the ones who were really good were the ones who cared about their customers more than themselves.
Right.
And by doing that, they became very successful. So I couldn't tell the difference at first because I didn't understand. But the ones who were successful cared about the customers. The ones who didn't cared about themselves. And like you say, they didn't really have a passion for the problem. They had a passion for their commission check.
Yes.
And it was, it was all the terrible stereotypes. But I thought I had to have pitch decks and documents and talk in ways that were stupid. Until I got the confidence to say, hey, you're here to solve this problem. If I can help you solve the problem, I'm going to help you solve it. If I can't, I'll try to find someone who can. Mm-hmm. But how did you figure that out? Because I feel, looking back, I'm like, why did it take me so long to figure something that basic out?
Well, first of all, I had a great mentor in my second startup, IT Watchdogs. I had a co-founder who was the guru type when it comes to these things, sales and marketing, etc., business. And so I learned a lot from my co-founder. I was the young geek who can code anything, and he was the gray hair business guy, and it worked really well. So I learned a lot from him specifically. But I think, isn't there a lot of things in life where even if you read the book, you still need to do it and screw it up, and it kind of, in retrospect, takes longer than it things like it ought to have. On the other hand, I think there's probably some survivor bias in that opinion. In other words, you look back and say, why did this take me so long? But of course, the things that didn't take you long, you just forgot. Right. And so you only see the things that took forever. And so you see those 4 things, not remembering there's maybe 50 other things that didn't take you so long. So it's that pessimistic look back is maybe slightly biased by that. But it's also true. You hear things like, speaking more broadly about entrepreneurship, you can't find someone who won't tell you a story about a horror story about firing someone, especially not firing someone soon enough. Sure. There's an old thing, especially when you're in front of a lot of people, you say, raise your hand if you've ever waited too long to fire someone, of course everyone raises their hand. Okay, now raise your hand if you fire someone too soon. Like no one raises their hand, right? So we all have those stories, and yet knowing that, you're still going to do it. Right? You're still going to commit that until you've just got a lot of experience, and you have more experience with even things like performance management and communicating expectations and just all the things. And you still probably have it, but it just takes a lot, even when you know it intellectually. So I just feel like a lot of that in life in general is that way. And sales is tough, especially because you're on the spot. And what I mean is, you're on the phone or you're in person, you're doing the presentation, and you've got to do something now. And so there's all these moments, and it's awfully tough to A/B test or be even thoughtful about it. So, like one example for small companies, a lot of times they want to look big. So there's a question about how big are you guys, how long have you been, how many people are there, all these kind of questions, and you want to exaggerate,
right?
Right. And whether
you're guilty of that.
Yeah, we all have, right? And so again, like I feel like having done that and also having not done that at different times with different companies of mine, I'm absolutely sure that being honest is the best policy. But it took me 20 years to decide that, and of course I did it the other way. And you could argue the other way. I don't think that's an absolute. To me, it's true. I mean, clearly you can build a company other ways. I remember I was on the phone with Lockheed Martin, and there were more people in the conference call than there was in our entire company. And so they asked how big we are, and all that. And the thing is, if we said, oh yeah, we're big, or, we're whatever I thought big was, 20, right. WPEngine's 400, and that still seems pretty big.
And they're what, like 100,000 people?
Oh yeah, right. And so, what would happen though if I pretended to be big and got away with it during that meeting? Okay, well then they have expectations of a bigger company. We should have a security department, and they should be able to talk to the head of security about it. Oh, well, we don't have one of those. They're going to be disappointed. We should have 24/7 chat or support because we're big and global. So of course you'd have someone awake at all times, and you could just go on and on. You would understand the purchasing process of a company like Lockheed Martin, which it's hard to do until you've done it. It's weird and complicated. We can talk about that too, but the truth is you can't make good on what a big company will do, and so you pretend like you are, and then it will come out. That's not good sales. If they won't do business with a small company, why are you and you pretend, you're just delaying the inevitable.
You're suffering until you get put down.
You're just wasting your own time, not to mention theirs, but your own time that you could be using talking to people that could maybe buy the thing. It's a waste of time. So you got to be honest right up front, and then they have the right expectations as well. And if they say no, then that's fine. You weren't ready. But if they say yes, you're good.
Right. And they like you. They might want to do business with a small company. They have a certain appreciation for what you bring.
Yes.
And for the folks listening, you wrote a great blog post about this. I can't remember the title. Do you remember the title of this? It totally changed my thinking on the subject, because I was caught in this cognitive dissonance between thinking I needed to pretend to be big and not feeling comfortable, not really being honest with people.
Right.
I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And I feel phony and whatever, but I think I have to do this. I have to do all this stupid sales stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
And I read that post. I was like, yeah, this is totally the right thing. And I've actually sent links to that blog post that I can't quite remember off the top of my head to other people when I look at their websites, and it's like clear that you're bullshitting.
Yes.
There is no we here.
Yeah,
right?
That's the other thing is it's usually obvious. And again, then you just start out being ungenuine.
Right.
And again, this is how I would put it. Well, I'll tell you two things. I'll tell you how to put it, and I'll tell you how, like a way to think about it, though, like you can use as a framework to guide lots of decisions around this, as like a North Star. So the main thing is this: big companies have tons of advantages over any small company. They have brand, they have money, they have people and talent, they have teams, they're global, they have experience. I could keep going. Like they got a ton of stuff, right? And so to pretend like you're that, no, you're not. And they'll just defeat you soundly on all those things because they are that. The thing that is, a small company has lots of advantages. They're just different. They're not ones of brand and money and those kinds of things. That's just not where the advantages lie in a small business. By pretending to be big, not only will you disappoint them, you're giving up the advantages that you actually have in exchange for sucking at the things that you think you're pretending you have, but you don't, and it's apparent. So the thing to do is to realize what it is that you have that is special, and then use it to win the deal. So for example, early on at WPEngine here, again, we're a hosting company. So that means we have your website, right?
You have
so
mine.
You gotta trust us, because man, if we go down, that's your whole brand, right? So imagine a big company doesn't like that. So no one wants to be the biggest customer, of course, right? They don't want, because maybe we won't be very good at hosting a site that big. Of course they don't. So early on, this is what I would say. I would say, hey, you're going to be our biggest customer. And that sounds like the biggest sales no-no ever. No, you want to say, oh no, you're like number 100, you're good, right? You're going to be our biggest customer. So that should worry you. This is being honest. You should be worried. Can we handle it? Do we have the kind of 24/7 service that's required for a site like that? If it takes special things to make this work, since you're the biggest one ever for us, will we do it? Are we capable of it? Will we do it quickly? You should be asking yourself all these questions, and you should be demanding evidence that the answer is yes before you move forward, or else you're not being responsible. Now there's a place to start.
Right.
But of course I've set myself up for having a path to say yes. Mm-hmm. Now again, if someone would say, oh, in that case, absolutely no, then again, that was good, because you know what? We would have gotten that site, they would have experienced some problems, and they would have been really upset. We would have lost the deal anyway, eventually, except we've all wasted a ton of time.
Right.
So that's okay. But I've set myself up to say yes. So then I'd say, so here's what I recommend. I could tell you all day long about how we do this and how we do that, but why would you believe me? We don't have a relationship yet. The more honesty. The sales guy would just tell you, right? So I said, so what you need to ask yourself is, what is the experience of our current biggest customer? Because we have one right now, don't we?
Right.
We must. But it's math. Of course we do. What was their experience like? What is their experience like? What happened when they had problems? What did we do? So here's their name and number. They're expecting your call. Now, of course, this assumes you have a big customer who will say that, because it assumes that you, in fact, have a great product.
Right.
And that you are able to handle this kind of site. If you're not, again, you shouldn't be making this sale. But if you should, and that's true, then here's a way to convince somebody that's very real and tangible. And of course, you got to say, now, if this all works out and you're happy, in 6 months, you're going to be that guy. Okay? Right? That's fair. So, but all these things, again, it's genuine, it's very real, it's very personal. Another thing I would say a lot of times, and by the way, it worked.
How many times have you teared up that way? Because it's like a staircase,
it's
right?
true. At this point, we've hosted such large sites that we don't have to.
Okay.
But I mean, I used that for 3 years, right? But I mean, we've now hosted people like the CMA Awards. They get 80 million hits in 4 hours. That's a lot. I mean, even some of the biggest sites in the internet don't get that. So, I mean, we have some great case studies and stories now. We don't have to make that kind of an argument about,
because now people know.
Yeah, I mean, we have just such big things. But I use that a lot early on. I mean, I can't remember how many times I used that line. A lot of times, dozens if not 100, right? But you know, again, it's using the advantage. So what are the advantages that I was using there? Number one, honesty. Mm-hmm. Number two, the fact that as a small business, you can put all of your energy into a customer. Mm-hmm. Like, you can go to a big company, but like, you're going to get whatever their support is, and maybe an account manager that manages 150 accounts, right? Like, you're not going to get attention.
Whereas they're going to get your number.
Of course, they're going to get our undivided attention. In fact, as the biggest customer that we really don't want to lose, and we want to earn your referral as well, not just that your business, but your advocacy, which is even harder. We're going to have to earn it. Mm-hmm. But we're going to, and the evidence is, look at our last one. Right. So that's a very powerful. You're setting yourself up to the customer to say, I am setting my own bar high, but I'm willing to vault it. Here's someone else where that's happened. Let's go. So I'm using the fact that I can give so much attention to somebody, and that feels really good, mm-hmm. as long as you feel like that's still safe enough. Right. And the big company can't do that. Don't give it up. Use it. So that's kind of the first part is that's being genuine. That's a specific technique, etc. And yet another thing, like kind of a framework or mindset I'll give you for this. That again wraps up these concepts, but in something tangible that you can use, right? Is the word boutique. Mm-hmm. I think this is the critical word for small businesses doing sales, etc. Wrapping up all these advantages as boutique. What's a boutique? A boutique dress shop isn't open 24/7. It's open when the owner's there. which may not even be regular hours. You might have to call for an appointment, but it certainly isn't weekends and it certainly isn't holidays. And sometimes they're closed for 2 weeks. Boutique. Another thing is you get attention from the owner. A boutique doesn't have 1,000 employees all doing things. Bro, a boutique is a special, curated, white glove, personal, custom thing.
Yes.
That's what a small business can deliver that a big business can't. Boutique. Here's another thing boutique is. Expensive. There's not cheap boutiques. You have to pay a lot of money. Good, because small businesses need to be able to charge a lot. You can't have only a few customers and also only charge $10 a month.
Right.
That's not a winning business, right?
And you can't deliver a lot of personal service.
No, absolutely
as
not.
if you're doing cookie cutter stuff.
No, you cannot, right? So it can be cookie cutter, but it has to be expensive cookie cutter, right? It still should be a product. If you're doing a product business, then it is a product, and it can't be custom each time, or else you're a consulting shop, which is fine too. But you have to decide what you are, etc. But what you can't do is charge $10 a month, whatever it is,
right?
Right, and be a small business and do sales. So you have to be able to charge a lot. Well, boutiques do. They justify it because you're talking to the founder. You're getting a special kind of a service or product from them. So even in the case of a dress, they're not making the materials. They may customize it, custom fit it, right? Just like you would customize a SaaS application with certain customized stuff. Not your own installation, but things that are custom for you, right? And so that's another thing you need is to charge a lot, just like the big guys. So let's take the case of a marketing agency and make it more tangible. How come this boutique marketing agency person is charging $200 an hour? I thought that's what the big guys do. Yes, but the big guys will charge you that much, but you're not talking to the actual great big guys.
Right.
You're talking to their various minions who are good.
Right.
They're good, but they're upcharging you 5x, 10x because that's the business model, right?
Right.
That's why it's $100 an hour. Here it's $200 an hour because it's the owner, it's the partner that you're getting directly. And only a few things are outsourced. These little things are outsourced, little things, making some icon or making 60 ways to do X, but you're getting the person. That's why it's $200 an hour. That's the difference. So again, you can compete against the big guys with all their resources because you're boutique. So this word boutique is very useful to summarize this idea of being expensive, but special in the ways that a small business can deliver, and no big company can deliver.
Right. Eventually, I managed to start using the word boutique when I was doing consulting, and that was super useful. And I also used the phrase, we're the special forces guys. To imply sort of the nimbleness and things that the big guys can't do. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a lot cheaper than hiring a whole army, but the per person cost is going to be a lot more expensive. And one of the things that I learned when I started out, like every other idiot, I was like, I'll be like the big guys, but cheaper. Mm-hmm. Really bad move.
Terrible.
Right? Eventually I was like, I'll be differentiated from the big guys, but distinctly and proudly more expensive on a per unit basis.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that now my customers call and they say, well, how do we compete against these larger companies? I'm scared about pricing, and 99% of the time my response is, you should be scared, you're pricing way too low. Right? You have the right benchmark, you just need to flip it and be 50% more expensive because you're going to deliver better results for what they need. Right? You're not going to send them 300 people for a year.
Yeah, the valuable question is always how do I deliver so much value that the customer wants to spend more money with me? Right. That's always the valuable question. And then you should do that thing, and then you should charge more money.
So let's get back into the sales conversation. Sure. I want to say one thing about this wine, which is that even I know that this is opening up beautifully.
Yeah,
it was a little bit that got that spiciness at the beginning, and it's just very drinkable right now. I have to be careful because Uber's no longer here. I have to drive home.
Well, they have Fasten.
Have you tried that yet?
No, but others here who use this kind of services say that it's very good.
Okay, I have it on my phone. I'm looking forward to trying it. Hopefully not tonight because that probably would be complicated in other ways. But you mentioned how do you deliver more value so that people think that you're a bargain, basically, no matter what it is that you're charging. And I think one of the challenges people have is they don't set themselves up for success in the sales cycle because they focus on I'm checking off the box if I can solve this technical problem, but they end up underestimating how much it's really worth. And so they kind of fall back on their heels when it comes to pricing. Do you have any tips for people during the sales process so that they go into the pricing conversation knowing that they have tons of room to play?
So first of all, I don't think you want to come off as a bargain.
Right.
You want to come off as being valuable
Fair enough.
which is that you will deliver value and that will cost you both, right? That's actually the great thing.
But it's a good investment.
Yeah. So engineers often get caught up in the how of the solution. This is how it gets solved. These are what the features are, as opposed to solving the customer's solutioning for the customer's actual business problem.
Right.
And sometimes people say sell benefits, not features. I'm not totally sold on that either, because I feel like benefits are often vapid in the way that sales often is.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, you can say, process twice the invoices in half the time. That's a benefit. It's also kind of crap, and everyone says stuff like that. This will be very fast, good ROI. Like that's what everyone says as a benefit. So those kind of benefit statements to me are not tangible, and so they're not
what does that
interesting.
mean?
Yeah, who knows? And even if it means something, it's like, but everyone says that benefit, so it's not distinguishing. So I think features are good, demos are definitely good because they're tangible, right? But ultimately, the customer is trying to solve a specific business problem or achieve a good thing, a business outcome. And so the question is, are you the best way to achieve that outcome? So let's say it's a marketing tool. So in marketing, you're trying to increase leads to sales or increase self-signups or increase visibility to metrics so that you can do one of those two things, and so on. There's a couple of basic things marketing's trying to do. Measure something, do something, achieve a result for sales.
Measure
right?
something? I thought we were talking about marketing.
Yeah. So coming in with a tool and saying, hey, this tool integrates with this stuff, that's true, but that's not actually, the marketer didn't wake up in the morning and say, I wish I had more tools that integrated with stuff. That's not actually what they're trying to do. They're trying to increase leads to sales. On the other hand, if all you say is, this tool increases sales, it's like, well, okay, I guess all tools do.
Right.
So there's a gamut there between sort of the nitpicky feature, which is not solving the problem, and like the generic statement of the benefit, which is also not specific enough. So what is the specific way that you're solving the problem? That would be good. So an example might be, hey, so AdWords, you know everything about everything, you can A/B test and it's all magical. But magazine ads aren't. Magazine ads are back in the age of half my marketing spend is wasted, I don't know which half.
Right.
So what our tool does is it makes magazine ads as data rich as Google ads. So the benefit is still like optimize your ad spend, but that would be too generic. But how do you do that? Do you have a code? Do you do this? Is there a tool? Do I have to install something? Do I have to put something in my ads or a QR code? That's all the how that engineers want to get into, right? But that's not the sale. The sale is, do you want your magazine ads to be more effective?
Okay.
Right. That is the thing. Where if the answer is no, then all that how doesn't matter. All the features don't matter. The answer is yes, and the question is your tool the best way to do that? Another thing is a lot of times you think about solving a pain, and that's good to say something like, you don't have any stats on Pinterest. This will give you stats on Pinterest. That's a pain sell. The problem is I don't have this. Now I don't have that problem. So that's good. There's nothing wrong with that kind of sale. But the more powerful sale is not reducing a negative, but creating a positive.
Okay.
So in other words, instead of you don't know anything about Pinterest, now you do, it's you aren't getting the sales you could get out of Pinterest. You're getting just a few. But with this tool, it becomes an entire new channel for generating new leads. You just created a new growth area. And see, that's not getting rid of a negative. That's creating a positive, which is a new channel for growth.
And now you, in theory, have unlimited upside.
Maybe. I certainly have more value. Because if I kill a problem, my value is limited to the value of the problem I killed.
Right.
But if it's something new that I create, maybe it's unlimited. Okay, it's not infinite,
unlimited,
right? But
it's
not prematurely capped,
right?
Especially in the customer's mind.
That's
this could only be worth $1,000, right? No, I don't know what it's worth, but it's definitely good. And by the way, marketers are always under pressure to create new growth. And so if a marketer, and I know I'm banging the marketer example, but obviously you could cross-apply this to anything else, right? So I'll just stick with it. When a marketer goes to a CEO and says, I delivered the same number of leads this month as last month, but I was a little more efficient in my spend because I bought this tool. The CEO will go, well, I'm glad you were more efficient. That's definitely good. But where's my growth?
Right.
Now suppose that same marketer comes back. Hey, I delivered 10% more leads this month than last month. I just grew the company 10% in 1 month. Now I had to buy this tool, stretch my budget a little. I'm going to need a variance actually from now, actually for 12 months for this new tool because it's generating this growth. What do you think the CEO is going to say? Hell yes.
Right.
What, I'm going to save some money on a tool but not get the growth?
Turn it off.
No,
Growth.
never, ever, ever in the history of the world does a CEO say, I don't want that growth. Stop using the tool. Ever. So in other words, creating the positive of new growth. Mm-hmm. The value, like the tool cost is like, I mean, it can't be outrageous. It can't be more than the growth, I guess.
Right.
Like, it can't be outrageous, but like, it's not even a question. It's just get the goddamn tool now. Of course, even if it stretches the budget. On the other hand, if it's, I didn't deliver more growth, the actual purpose of marketing to deliver growth, I didn't do it, but I saved money on a tool. It's like, well, fine, you can have that tool as long as the value nets out. But you see how you're capped. The amount of value is limited and capped, and it's not the most important thing. Whereas if you're talking about creating new value, it's a whole different situation. Internally, now none of that's your sales pitch, but it is because this is ultimately how the sale will happen. Is this kind of conversation, and that's why it is relevant to how you actually sell.
And I think the other thing that's nice about that approach is it plays back to the engineering strength of now I'm incentivized to invest in further growth, making this app better so that, you know, maybe we take it from Pinterest to Facebook or whatever it is we do, more, everyone's in alignment. Whereas, like you say, if you're capped at, we're going to save you a little bit of money on your Pinterest advertising, there's not that much incentive to improve once you've hit that baseline. There's only so much you can invest in that as a company and as a person thinking about this problem.
Yeah.
So it's everything you're saying is about playing to your strengths, not trying to pretend that you don't have some other weaknesses in areas that may or may not matter.
Yeah, definitely playing to strengths and again, playing to the creation of new positive things that are what the customer wants, not the elimination of negative things.
Okay.
And just to be clear, elimination of negative things is a perfectly fine sales pitch. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of products do that, not a problem. But there's way more value the other way, and you can often turn a product from one to another. In other words, the thing that measures your Pinterest, you can pitch it as optimizing your Pinterest spend, but you could also pitch it as creating a new growth channel in Pinterest that you're not confident enough to do today.
Right.
And it's the same product.
Right.
So although there's nothing wrong with the pain sell, if you can sell the same product as a positive, it's much, much more valuable in the eyes of the customer. Another thing I'll say to your question, which was, because that's like one answer to your question, which is, how do you kind of frame the question and how do you go in as an engineer and not get kind of caught up in the things engineers get caught up in? How do you kind of sell to the business? A second answer would be to to sell. Well, anyway, you have a whole bunch of questions. I guess we'll go on to other things. It's fine.
No. Unless, do you want
No, go ahead.
So I guess one of the things I'm curious about, going back to the company you started back when you met up with this mentor, which sounds like it was really helpful for you on so many levels.
Sure.
What were you guys doing? What were you selling? How did it go down? And how did you sell millions of dollars worth of stuff without having any salespeople?
Well, first of all, it's hardware in that company. It was also 15 years ago, and the world was different. So people still responded to magazine ads, which we did. One of the more brilliant things we did is we made a book, a self-published book, in which we explained kind of some of the benefits in the front and some of these stuff around the product, and then it was kind of a product catalog in the back. And we would give you this book for free. We'd ship it to you for nothing. Just fill out the form. And people were just stunned because everyone gives you a free e-book and a PDF, and you don't really read it, whatever. But to ship someone something is, even today, unusual. And it feels like it's worth something that you did it, even though it's a glorified brochure. And so people would get it, and they'd actually read it, and it was...
How long was this book? Are we talking
160 pages because it's mostly a brochure.
But it looks like a book. It's
it's
not
a
like
paperback
it's not
book.
a brochure.
No, it's a paperback book. Yeah, I repeated this at Smart Bear and with learnings and did it much better. I reversed it, and instead of a little bit at the front that's like kind of teaching and mostly product catalog, I did the reverse. It was 150 pages of just information about code reviews, which is developers reviewing each other's work, just like authors and editors do to find mistakes and teach people how things work, bring in new people and so on. And so it was just all these techniques from things that waste time, things that don't, what to measure, what not to measure, what's kind of how to build a checklist that's not a waste of your time and actually relevant to what you're doing. There's all kinds of things that are just useful. And at the very end, at the very back, last chapter, by the way, we make a tool that does a lot of this. Check it out.
So the book didn't have screenshots of the tool or anything like that?
Only in the last 10 pages.
It was all just, here's what you should do.
Information, just really good content.
So you're doing content marketing before people called it content marketing.
Right, but we gave it in a book. This was key, because people do this all the time, send out PDFs, but again, it doesn't have the impact. So they receive the book. By the way, you can do this for less than $10 per book, including shipping and printing and everything. And nowadays, probably even less. So, but that's what I was paying at Smart Bear. We were buying them 1,000 at a time. We sent out over 50,000 of these books.
Where did you get them from?
So I remember the name of the
Some
company.
publisher.
Nowadays, there's a lot of these,
okay.
right? This is easy now. So we learned all these kinds of things, like because you're shipping someone something, people are willing to give you fill out a really long form. Like they're doing all their shipping information, all this shit, right? And they'll telling you all this stuff, like their phone number and their address, and it's the right phone number. Talk to people and see if they can make a form people actually fill out their phone number on. It's really hard.
Know all about
and yet
it.
everyone did, because you're shipping them something. They need to maybe get contacted about the shipment, right? Also, we put in these fields like, how did you hear about us and stuff like that. And they all filled them out. It was almost like, because it was long or something, they decided like it was okay. The reason I mean decided is the how did you hear about us was fill in, not a drop down, and optional. And 92% of the time they filled it in. So
that's amazing.
They're willing to say, in fact, another interesting, I'll do a side note on that, this because it's useful. We had a drop down. You heard about us at this conference, at this ad. We thought this is going to be great. People were picking different things that didn't seem to make sense. So I added 2 things that were not true. An event we didn't go to, and a magazine we didn't advertise in. And they were picked a lot also. So my theory is people are just like clicking around to get through the form. But whatever the theory, the fact is that it was bullshit. So we changed to fill in the blank optional, and people filled it out. Now, of course, there's typos and weird things, so you have to sort of normalize on the other end. And if you're an engineer, that's just a lot of regexes and stuff. It's actually not that hard, right? Even if you're not an engineer, you can still kind of sweep and sort of bucket it into categories, right? Anyway, that was invaluable. So this was so effective that I could tell you the day an issue of Dr. Dobbs magazine hit someone's desk, because you could see the bump in book orders attributed to that. Now, I'm not saying go out and do magazine ads today, but what that proves is magazine ads, talk about something you can't track.
Right.
You can't track it. Except we could track it perfectly because of a book. And the reason is because people were willing to fill out this field because it was a book that was real. So that data is invaluable. So I know I'm on a tangent here, but it's pretty useful information. So it was almost like the quid pro quo of getting something physical or valuable was worth them giving you this information that, of course, allowed us to drive our marketing, including in ways that are usually hard to drive. Another thing is people don't throw away books.
Okay.
It's like sacrilegious. Who throws a book in the trash? Nobody. It goes to half-price books or sits on the shelf like those books over there that I don't read, and they're on the shelf. And so I made this book bright red so that it would be on the shelf and visible. Obvious. It was an obvious color. And so people wouldn't throw them away. They would live. Brochures don't live. Right. They get thrown away. Books don't. They have infinite lifetimes. So we would get these weird sales, or not weird, we'd get sales where people would say things like, I found this book on my coworker's desk on a shelf, and I was thumbing through it, and it was actually kind of interesting, and so then it's totally random.
Like 2 years later.
Yeah, I guarantee you, brochure, that wouldn't happen. Right? So the book has the staying power. So I'll tell you one last story, because this is relevant to sales. I'll bring it back to sales. Marketing is relevant, of course, but we was in a sales call in San Diego at Cardinal Health, a big health company, big enterprise type sale. We're sitting at a table, and the guy who was sort of our cheerleader there, which is another important concept in enterprise sales, is having that cheerleader or that beachhead. Anyway, he was helping that person themselves be successful, right? So that person his boss was there, and he's like, we're going to go with this guy. And he takes the book, and he slaps on the table. He goes, we're going with him. So the boss picks it up, and is like, what do you mean? He's like, well, they literally wrote the book on code review, and we're using their tool. He thumbs it around, throws it. He doesn't read it, but it passes what you call the thump test.
Right.
It kind of has a weight to it. It's like, okay. And you could just see like, oh, like that worked. Now, I mean, rationally, that shouldn't work. Like any schmuck can write a whole bunch of nothing prose and buy a book for $9 bound. Like anybody can do this. Like you should not put any stock into this at all, but that's not what happens. People do. It's a book.
I haven't read this book, even though I probably should.
Yeah.
As the guy who writes code. But I'm guessing it was a legitimately useful book.
Oh, it definitely is.
Right?
It was good content for sure.
And so, like, you didn't sell 50,000 people because you shipped 50,000 books. You sold some fraction of that, but you delivered value to 50,000 people.
Well, maybe. I mean, who knows? Maybe they didn't read it, but to some, I delivered disproportionate value. So Cardinal Health was one book, and yet that deal was something like $80,000 or 200 or whatever it was from the book. In other words, that one deal paid for all the books ever. Right. And so when you think of it in that way, plus the ability to understand the marketing spend better because people would be honest in their filling out of the form. That right there pays for the book actually. So again, like maybe you can copy that exactly, maybe not, but the principle of giving away something of value, and even selling that way, that's a useful principle for sure, if not literally the book. And it also shows, and this is maybe an aside, but there's a general thing in startups when everyone's running one way, you go the other, or investing.
Sure.
Warren Buffett says the same thing. The time to spend is when everyone's afraid. This is a great example. Books are dead, right? That's exactly why if one shows up on your desk wrapped in bubble wrap, you go, what the hell is this? And then you open it and you look at it and you don't throw it away. Exactly because, quote unquote, books are dead.
Right.
That's why it works.
It's differentiated.
It's because it's different, right? So maybe it's a fun example of that. And look, in sales, it's the same thing. Same old sales pitch, boring. So don't.
Right.
Whatever you think sucks about sales, whatever you think is good, do that. You'll be passionate about it. It'll be honest. And it will be different. And that's good.
So the 27 slide deck with your mission statement, company history and all that's good as a joke, but there's no need to actually have one or do one. God knows I wasted so much time putting together those stupid decks before I realized that it was just dumb. Before I realized, the way I realized it actually was that I hated when people gave that to me.
That's it.
So why are you wasting my time?
That is it. People have this weird language when they talk about selling to enterprise or businesses in general, but especially the larger ones, where they're like, they say things like, Lockheed Martin wants to see this, as if Lockheed Martin is somebody with an opinion about what they want to see in a deck. It's not. There are people there. You're selling these people. Does that person want to see it? If that person's super interested in your mission statement, then by all means tell them what it is.
Right.
But likely they're not. Likely they're what you just said. And so it's not. Lockheed Martin is not a thing with an opinion. The specific people there are things with an opinion.
Well, the other thing that I took forever to figure out, which seems completely obvious now, is once you realize they're people, how do you figure out whether they want to see your mission statement or whatever they want to? Exactly. You just freaking ask them. It's really simple.
Yeah, it's super simple. And if you do a slide and you're curious, you send them ahead to your proponent, your inside, your mole, and you say, hey, what should I include any of this? Should I do nothing? What should I do? What do you think is interesting? And they'll say, there's this Richard's going to be in there and he loves blah blah. So you got to keep in slide 3, and Tracy's in there and she, she'll rip you a new one if you don't say something about X. It's not even in your deck. Like you've got to put an X in your deck, and then that's your deck.
Right.
The 2 slides for the 2 people. Of course, you cheat and ask.
Right. People are so worried, and I was worried the same way. So I get it. Right. You feel like you're going to be stupid if you don't magically know all the answers. But if you were talking to one of your friends, you wouldn't magically assume all this stuff. You would just ask them what they need, right? And so if you genuinely care about this person that you're selling to, they may not be your friend, but you genuinely care about them, treat them the same way and just ask them.
Just ask.
I remember I finally did this once. I was trying to sell some of the GE, right? Like at that time, I think they were the largest company by market cap in the world, and here I am. I don't even remember if I had any employees at the time, but I was suggesting one of my bullet points involved insurance. Like we're providing insurance against XYZ bad events.
Right.
And he was like, by the way, we're GE. We sell insurance.
Yeah,
we don't buy insurance.
Yeah. Right.
Take that out. Right? But if I had left that in there, I would have killed the whole deal.
It's true. I mean, it's especially when you're fresh, you're so naive to all these things, right? You have to be. You haven't done it. That's all. And there's just too many things to list to put them in a book. Like, would you put that in a book? Would one book have all those things? No. You have to kind of run into them. That's okay. So you ask.
Right.
It saves you. You got to get you have to have your cheerleader, your advocate inside the business, and that's who you ask.
And I think that was one of the things that screwed me up. When I got into this stuff, I realized, okay, I don't know anything about sales. I bought all these sales books, and they all have like 12 chapters of whatever, which is basically like implying all these decision trees about what you're supposed to do. When really the answer is just ask the prospect how they want it.
Yeah, the companies really don't follow one pattern. I mean, there's some patterns, of course. What is AP? What's a purchase order? Okay, fine. But the actual dynamics of this person with their department and their budget cycle and the shit that's happened before, during, and after this, and their boss and who's moved around, that's all different. It'll even change in the same company over time.
Right.
Not much less different companies.
And even the same person over time.
Or GE, I sold to GE too, and you don't sell to GE, you sell to GE Medical, GE Insurance,
right.
GE, the turbine engines, NBC, etc., right? And they're all different. So, even that, it doesn't mean anything, right? So you need that advocate because they are going to navigate this crazy spaghetti crap that's back there. Now you need to manage them and help and try to get the other actors and figure out what their roles are, but it's a puzzle of who are all these people, what's going on, who do I need to sign off on security, to sign off on correctness, to sign off on price.
Right.
Who do I need for all this stuff? It's a mystery, but you need that beachhead advocate to help you navigate the thing, which is part bureaucracy, but part whatever's going on right now.
And I think it kind of goes back to, again, you need to ask, how do you guys buy stuff like this? This was the thing that took me a long time to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, I have all the boxes checked. Why isn't this working? Well, there's some reason.
People
right?
are nervous. They're nervous that'll make you look like you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
It's just the opposite. Knowing that you need to ask shows you know exactly what you're doing. That you need to find out so that you can do the right thing. That's what the pros do.
Right.
It's the neophytes that think they know when they don't. So never mind that whole I'll look dumb. Just the reverse. You'll look very smart and savvy. And the second thing is a lot of times your own advocate doesn't know and has to go find out. And that just proves there was no way that you could have known if the guy who actually works there doesn't even know.
Right.
And then finally, again, this is assuming they're actually an advocate and want you to succeed. If they don't, you're still on step one.
Right.
And step one is finding that advocate who actually wants you to succeed in a big company. If you don't have that person yet, there's no proceeding. There's no moving forward because it takes agreement in a big company. And if there's no one at that table on your side, you'll never get that. So if you have an idea, if you don't know who the advocate is, then you don't have one.
Right.
And your job is to create one.
Right.
So, but assuming you do, that person is now, you have to remember, again, thinking in their shoes, be empathetic. They're putting their own reputation on the line for you. They're advocating for you. That literally means putting their reputation on the line for you, putting their weight behind this decision.
If it goes well, they're going to look good. If it goes badly, they're going to look bad.
So that's a big thing they're doing for you. They're in this with you. You're chums. And so knowing that, your job is to make them successful in being a hero at their company for having made this decision, right? And so, asking them how can we get this done is also what they need. If they go through a 6-month process or even a 6-day process advocating for you and it doesn't happen because some other schmuck at the company blocked it,
right?
That is bad for their reputation.
Right.
For you, you've just wasted time. Not so bad. It's going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
For them, they actually lost points at their own company because this didn't happen. It's a negative for them.
Right.
So again, okay, so number one, great, we're friends. Thank you for that. Number one, and
or remember comrades.
Yeah. So remember to treat them that way. That they're in this. They got skin in this. That's great. But then you both need to figure out how to do this. So you should be asking each other all the time, what can we do to be successful?
Right.
You're on the same team now. That should be the attitude.
And I think one of the things that I had trouble with was I was always trying to downplay the risks and the bad things that could happen, which made me look naive. It didn't make me look like I was slick and comforting. It made me look stupid. And I think there's a whole bunch of things that can go wrong with the sales cycle and with the project, whatever it may be, that I found as soon as I started talking about those things up front, people were like, oh, you get me, right? You want to make sure that I don't look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Let me help you make sure that I don't look like an idiot and you get money.
Well, think about it. Let's say the project goes and it doesn't go as well as planned, but the risks were stated up front, and this was one of them. That person doesn't get fired.
Right.
They said it was a risk, and then it happened. That's called taking a responsible. That's called making a responsible decision. That's exactly what you do.
Right.
Right. The irresponsible thing is to pretend like there's no risks, and
right.
then it goes wrong, and then you were just you didn't see it. You
right.
weren't sophisticated enough to manage this. You didn't even know how it could fail.
Right. Never mind the promotion. You're not qualified for the role you have now. Apparently.
Absolutely not. Right. Whereas the risk, and so if you ever see someone's S1 when they're going public, and you go look at the risks, and they're hilarious. They go on and on for pages, and it's almost like they're just reaching for like esoteric things.
They're
like
just covering everything.
Yeah. Well, it could be that there's a seismic shift in the economy, and no one buys software ever again, and the internet disappears, and it's just like, really? The internet disappears as a risk that you're like including in your strategy? I don't think so. Yeah, that's really not one of them. So that's going too far, and of course they're doing that for other reasons that are
right.
irrelevant to this discussion. But the point is, as a funny extreme example, though, but if there's no risks, then that's just, well, first of all, we all know that's a lie.
Right.
Of course there's risks. Another example of a lie that a salesperson often tells. Oh no, it's going to work. It's going to be great. No problems.
Guaranteed. 100% guaranteed. No problem.
That's a lie. It's a lie. So another example of telling the truth is saying, here are the risks. In fact, here's what I think the probability of these risks are.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do that, you can, the customer can make decisions around, well, what if we invested more? Could we bring this risk down?
Right.
Now that's a better question. Or, okay, I accept the risk. Or the other way, I don't care about this risk.
Right.
Is there another way we could configure this? Right, trade-off. A lot of we know about trade-offs as engineers. Sometimes you can trade risk in one area for risk in another area.
Right.
Such as, if we trade away that the budget can go up, but the timeline cannot go out, is that okay? Now, as a consultant, you may say yes or no, depending on your business, but that's a good question.
Right.
That's the right question. And so, or can the budget be fixed, but the scope isn't? Like these kinds of trade-offs, which is really trade-offs of risk as well. Mm-hmm. These are good discussions. You can help foster those discussions by labeling the risk in the first place.
Right. And
so
you look like an expert, and
Absolutely.
You look like you know what you're doing. You look like you're not going to leave them hanging in the lurch, which is the real. They may not state that. They're probably not going to tell you, I'm scared you're going to screw me over by having some risk that you know about that you're not sharing with me.
Yeah, here I'll give you. Here's a great example, and this happens to us here at WPEngine. And we buy stuff in the 5, 6, and every once in a while 7 figures a year in revenue in cost, right? So we'll have someone come in and they pitch us this, no risks, right? Someone comes in later that day. Oh, that's how you're getting compared. Did you know that? That's what's happening. And there's all these risks. So that they put in. Oh yeah. Now does the fearful salesperson thinks, I can't talk about the risk because I look weak or scary, or that I'm giving the reasons not to do it because it's so scary, right? That's the fear.
Yep.
But think about
all that.
Right, but think about the scenario I just set up. 2 pitches, they're both really good. One has risk, one doesn't.
Right.
What do we now they leave, and we're sitting on the table, and this is not hypothetical, okay? So we go, okay, so I understand the risks of that one. What are the risks of the other one? I don't know. Well, are we comfortable assuming an unknown set of risks? No.
Can I believe anything that guy told me because he pretended there were no risks?
Yeah, it might go so far as I don't trust him. But let's suppose I trust him. He just wouldn't discuss this with us. Because you're right, maybe we don't even trust him, and that's a slam dunk. But let's suppose, even just for the sake of argument, like we do, it's like, well, here we understand the risk, which means we know how to manage this project. We can either accept these risks and monitor for them.
Right.
We could decide to invest in other ways to mitigate them.
Mm-hmm.
So for an example of that would be, if we do ABC instead of BCA, we can pull some of this risk ahead. And even if it happens, we'll have spent less money overall and have made the decision quicker. See, that's an example of not losing the risk. In fact, it may still happen. But we can reorder the project to address it.
Which is
engineers do that all the time.
Right.
Of course we do, right? Or something else like, well, what if we did an internal project that simultaneously we did X? That would mitigate 2 of these risk points.
Right.
We'll ask the vendor to do it, and we'll pay them more for it. These are all different ways. Or just accept it. That's fine too. We just accept it. And if it's a big enough decision, we literally will tell the board.
Right.
And the board says, okay, I see that, right? So with one of these, we have the information and the tools we need to make a decision.
Right.
With the other one, we don't. So which one are we going to take?
It's like if you go to
the one where we know how to execute it and what we're getting into. So that's just, hopefully that goes to show how much it's just the opposite of, they'll know my weaknesses, they won't buy. It's exactly the opposite. Now that we understand the entire picture, we can make an informed decision, and so we will.
Right. And someone's going to come up with an example, listen to this, and say, no, I have some customer, and I went in and I shared everything, and they went with the guy who blew smoke up their ass. And that's
Sure.
You can always encounter a dumb customer, right? Like, this is not guaranteed to work 100% of the
Sales
time.
is not 100% game.
Right.
There's an old saying in sales, I'm not sure it's not still relevant, which is you have 25 prospects, of those 5 of them will talk to you, and of those 1 will buy. That's the typical thing. Every company will have different numbers there, right? But that's the kind of the quintessential thing. Like, even today, like, it's not uncommon for startups to say that between 1% and 2% of their traffic on the website converts, which is about what I just said, right?
Right.
So sales is not a 100% game. You should be thrilled if it's a 50% game.
Right.
Right? It's really more like a 2% game.
You should be thrilled if you're batting 300, right? Like, baseball's hard, but sales is a lot harder.
Yeah. So you're going to lose on all kinds of stupid stuff. We lose to competitors, and in which it's wrong on all sorts of different levels, right? There's a couple of things there. One is perception is reality for the customer. And if it really doesn't work out and they still need to solve this problem, you're still there. Now, that's a long game.
Right.
But we see this constantly in our business. We even see customers who have a bad experience with us. They don't realize how complicated their situation is, so they think it's all us.
Right.
And maybe some of it is. Maybe it's not. But even if some of it is, the truth is we have a great platform and great service. So what will happen is then they go somewhere else, and it's still broken, but they don't have the same service and the same platform. So then they realize, this is just a problem. This is just what this is.
It's just hard.
And we often get them back because they're like, well, WPEngine was at least working with us on it.
Right.
Right? Like, it's not going to be perfect, but they were listening and they were trying and they were doing things, right? And so, will that happen all the time? No. But sometimes that's what has to happen. And you can't think of sales, you can't think of it as 100%. You have to think of it as if it's not quite rolling the dice, but it's definitely indeterminate.
Well, and that actually leads me to something I've been meaning to ask you, which is, again, one of those things that just took me way too long, I think, to recognize, which is, obviously you want to get to yes. But if you don't have a good fit for yes, the next thing you want is a hard no.
Yeah, quickly.
And I spent a lot of time trying to keep things alive on life support that I should have been like, hey, good luck.
Yeah.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Talk to you later. But there was this notion that, in theory we can still save this. How did you figure out to just cut bait and go to the next fish?
What I would do is when it got hard, what I find is the good deals just are easy. Now that doesn't mean they will go quickly, or that there's not bureaucracy or some asshole in accounts payable or something who wants to screw with the purchase order. There's challenges, right? And some of this maybe is feel for doing it, but you just see the deals are moving. It's working.
Feels good.
It feels good.
In your gut.
You can just kind of tell it's going, right? We're hung up on bureaucracy, not on decisions and other boogers. One more thing we need in the product before we buy, that kind of stuff, which is bad signs. So what I do is I always say, you know what? This isn't a good fit. I just realized. We've been going down the road. It's close. There's a lot of things where it is. But the truth is, it isn't a fit. You still need this, and we don't do it. Your whatever department wants to do X, we don't do X. And you know what? It's just not a fit. It's okay. It's our product doesn't suck, and your requirements are not ludicrous.
Right.
It's just not a fit.
We just don't have chemistry. We shouldn't date.
Yeah, it's the Miranda thing. He's just not that into you, right? That's all it is. It's no big deal. We're part as friends. This is really interesting, and it's fine. And what happens is 70% of the time, they're like, oh, no, wait. Right. We can concede this, and let me work on this other guy. And all of a sudden it changes, and you're like, right? Because people will ask until it's over, right? They'll keep asking. So just saying, look, it's not a good fit is a great solution. We even do that with customers who have trouble, even after the sale. And it's they're having trouble with something or other. And we're like, look, we can throw more this and that at it, but ultimately, you've got to do X, Y, and Z. You've got to get a developer to do X, Y, and Z. That is going to actually solve this problem.
Right.
And they don't do it, and finally it's like, you know what? This isn't a good fit. We think you should do X, Y, and Z. You don't, and that is fine because the world isn't absolute. But it's clear that like whatever we think, whatever we're doing, whatever our philosophy is and our knowledge just isn't compatible with what you want to do, which is fine. It just means you're not going to be successful here.
Right.
You're not going to be happy here because it just doesn't match. You've got to find some place where it is for yourself, right. For your own sake. And again, that's often where it comes out like, oh, we'll do it,
Right.
And so that's maybe just a general thing in entrepreneurship and customer management before and after the sale. Yeah, I mean, getting to yes, the other thing, I guess a tip there is, I think people hear getting to yes and they think that means getting to close, but it's not. It's getting to the next phase of whatever we're doing. So early on, it's just getting to a pilot, or it's getting to a comparison, or it's getting a demo meeting, right? So in other words, people at the very beginning, you're just trying to, it depends on how you sell. We don't have demos, for example, but at SmartBear I did. So, if demos work, like at SmartBear, if I did a demo, we closed 50% of the time. So if we could get a demo, damn, like that was really good. Like we were almost home if we could get a demo going.
But you couldn't sell before the demo, and if you tried to, it would be a problem.
No, right? So getting to yes early means get to demo. After the demo, getting to yes probably means get pilot, depends on the size. But that's a big enterprise sale. Here at WPEngine, there's no trial, there's no demo. Sign up and see for yourself is our motto. So they can take many, many forms, right? So here we're getting to the first 60 days because we have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So that's our kind of mantra. It's like, hey, listen, you can get your money back. You have 2 months to kick the tires. We'll migrate your site for nothing. You can see if it's faster or not. You can put some traffic on it or not. You can ask a developer to check it out. You can do whatever you want, really. There's no risk because we'll give you your money back. So we're getting to that, right? So whatever it is, like what is it actually that you're trying to get this person to do next? That's what you're trying to get a yes for. And you can ask, and this is part of getting to yes, right, is you can say like, the used carsman shitty way of doing it is what is it going to take to get you in this car?
Right, today.
But that's the right kind of question actually, but it's a shitty way of saying it because it's about him instead of about you. It's about him getting the deal instead of about you being happy, right? So it's the right question to ask sort of what do we need to do next? That's the right idea, but it has to be with the customer. So in other words, like, what are you still worried about and what do you think you or we or anyone needs to do next so that you can either get to a yes or no about just the next thing, like whether to start a pilot or whether not to,
right?
Or whether to try this demo or whether not to. Do we need to identify someone on your side to run it? Do you need some more information? Do we need to run this by someone else? Like, you and I both either want to go to the next stage or stop and waste our time. But we both want that,
right?
So you tell me, like, what do we need to do for that? And see, that's the right way of asking how do I get you in this car today, right?
Right.
So it's still the right question.
And you can always say, I don't agree to those ludicrous things that you're expecting me to do. You're not a good fit for me.
Oh, of course.
But you want them to lay out what they need to become a customer.
Yeah.
And if you don't ask, you're probably just going to butt your head against the wall.
And also, if you don't ask, then you don't know.
Right.
Then you don't know what they need in order to get to the yes.
And you're going to lose.
Yeah.
So I'm told. Not that I would know, personally. So I want to ask you, just to switch tracks for a second.
Sure.
Why did you decide, hey, I want to try some Spanish red?
Well, I like Spanish wines.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a rioja, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know why. Because I don't have a lot of the language of the taste. It's such a specific nomenclature, and I don't have it. So I don't have a language to describe it. But for my palate, I like it. I think I like reds a lot better. I just think they have more flavor.
I'm with you on that. And I'd like a lot of Spanish stuff, and especially in the summer in Texas. I don't know whether it's just like the dry heat in Spain makes me feel good, or if it actually tastes better with Texas summers and spicy food and so on.
It could be. I mean, because Spanish food can be like that. One of the things I've always heard that I've always think about is people say like, oh, you got to serve the wine at room temperature, and then you realize, but in England, room temperature is 50 degrees, and in Spain it's 90 degrees.
Right.
So what does that mean again? It probably doesn't mean 54 degrees always, does it? It probably means different things. Which, again, just goes to show, like, look, how do you like it? You like it a little chill? Chill it. You don't? Don't. That's what you should do.
One of my long-term science projects is to figure out what room temperature means for whiskey.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well, I like whiskey, as you can see. I have a little there. And I like a cube or two per helping. You can decide what that means. But so just a little bit cool and a little bit of water.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I don't like to dilute, and so I don't like ice, especially. And I'll make the caveat that sometimes there are things that are just a little bit biting, and
Right.
a little ice is really helpful. But
Right,
the whiskey I really like to drink. I don't like ice.
Mm.
But I do have some metallic ice cubes.
Oh, so it just freezes and stays cold for a little while because it's metallic.
Right.
Yeah.
So I use those on occasion.
That's interesting.
But
To not dilute. See, I like a little bit of water.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and maybe I'll rope you into this experiment because there's a bunch of people, and we were all like, we all agree that this is an important question. We just haven't found the time to systematically answer it in a proper, like, double-blind way.
Yeah. There's also the big cube,
Yes.
right, which is a kind of combination of some water, but mostly cold.
And then there's also people who, like, they'll put their ice thing, they'll put their glass in the freezer and tilt it.
Yeah.
And so, it'll create a
Yeah.
shaped form of ice that doesn't
Right.
melt as fast.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's all these things. I'm probably just drink good whiskey.
Yeah. And good water.
That's true too. These are all important questions, folks.
Yeah.
All important questions. Thanks, Jason, and thanks for listening. In the interest of respecting your time, we split this interview into two parts, so we're going to wrap up part one now. You can check out the show notes on salesfornerds.io. That's sales for F-O-R, nerds.io. And of course, if this has been helpful, subscribe on iTunes, give a rating and review. That would really help out. And if you've got questions or comments or feedback on using any of these techniques, submit them on salesfornerds.io or by email at help@salesfornerds.io. Of course, if you want to jump straight into part two, you can. Otherwise, until next time.